If you love my body, just rush the border. New video shows chaos at the southern border. Over 10,000 migrants cramming themselves under a bridge in Del Rio, Texas. And officials say 10,000 more immigrants are on their way to join them. The massive makeshift shelter highlighting just how bad the problem is. Our own Bill Malusian showing earlier how migrants can easily cross a dam and make their way into Texas with no resistance. Now, keep in mind, the White House refuses to say that what we are all seeing is a crisis. They won't call it a crisis. Republicans are furious with the president and the fact that he's allowing this to happen. Watch.
It is the most horrific thing I've ever seen. It is packed in as a mass of humanity.
When it comes to illegal immigration, you just can't trust the Biden administration. It would be like trusting Harvey Weinstein with your daughter.
He is failing, and he is willfully disregarding his duty to enforce the laws of the United States.
This is not authorized by the state of Texas. It's not welcomed by the state of Texas or any other Republican state that I know, and they're not invited.
So, Emily, this has become such a crisis, and it's only been recently that Del Rio has become such a magnet. And they're saying it's because the president has refused to fly these mostly Haitian immigrants back to Haiti. So what is going on here?
Tragedy upon tragedy, compounded by an inept administration that refuses to acknowledge that this crisis is even present. And for an administration that claims to prioritize COVID over everything, you know, the vaccination rate in Haiti is 0.1%. 8,000 of those migrants under that bridge are from Haiti, as you pointed out. We know that, for example, in McAllen, Texas, there was a 15% COVID positive rate in the 7,000 migrants that have been released into that town in recent months. However, remember, New York City public schools shut down at 3%. So which is it? What is the priority of this administration? Now, I know that they're folding into this humongous bill that, with our tax dollars, will fund amnesty for all. But in the interim, it's a complete humanitarian crisis. These people have no adequate shelter. What looks like a party is an absolute cesspool. They are standing in their own feces. There's no running water that's clean. There's no potable water. There's no food sources. And instead of being put back to a safe place where they're from, they're just being left there in squalor with an administration and a mainstream media that turns its head.
And they can't turn their head right now because Fox has been flying a drone over the area just to capture the footage so people can see exactly what's going on and the number of desperate Haitians, South Americans, Mexicans who are trying to get into this country. But Bill Malusian has been reporting that there's a temporary flight restriction for 2 weeks, so we won't even be able to see these pictures. And you have 3 kids that you know of. You do have a baby. Yes. And so when babies put their hands over their eyes, they think that no one can see them. So the Biden administration wants to remove the Fox News drone so no one can see how bad it's really gotten in Del Rio, Texas.
That's the pattern that we've seen. He creates a crisis, then tries to cover it up and then lie about it. First, they wouldn't let the media in to these camps where they had the kids in cages. Then they hid the kids, flew them all over the country. And now they're saying Fox can't fly our drone overhead to capture the footage.
They did lift the ban a few hours ago because there was a lot of pushback when it was a very obviously politically motivated ban.
Right. And so that's what they do. And then they lie and they say everything's fine. It's not a crisis. Actually, it's Trump's fault. And which one is it? But here's why the media doesn't cover it. I think Fox is the only one with a drone. One of the main reasons is because a lot of people that work out of New York and D.C., they don't even see Texas as part of the country. This is this silly red state way down south. Maybe they'll go to Austin, to South by Southwest. They'll get a kick out of the music in the bar, and then they'll fly right back and say, I've been to Texas. They don't go to Brownsville. They don't go to McAllen or Laredo. They don't understand if you have...
Neither does Vice President Harris.
Neither does she, right? So if you have 10,000 Haitians or random guys from Nicaragua or Mexico just lined up pouring into a small town, a ranching town, families that have kids in school and small businesses, you're just going to overwhelm that town. The town can't handle that kind of influx of random people like that. Unvaxxed, no documents, no education, no English. You're going to pour across the border into a small town like that? These people are crying out for help, and the media just doesn't care because they're not affected by it. It's a 27-hour drive from Texas to New York. Might as well be Australia.
That's a much longer drive with no bridge.
Harder to drive
Oddly
to
enough.
Australia.
Good point, Jesse. So how do the Democrats make a political win out of this? Because you have Republicans and Democrats in a state that's trying to go from purplish to blue, and you have Democrat lawmakers who see what's happening and see how the towns and their constituents, to Jesse's point, are completely overrun. And this is something that Republicans are going to make hay with next year in the midterms.
I think that's a good question and a valid question, Kennedy. And I think the way to start is by telling the story of those Haitians at that border. And here's what we know. We know this, that most of the Haitians that are at that border would qualify for temporary protective status under American law and under international law. Many of those people have been through 2 earthquakes, 2 hurricanes. Many of them left the country of Haiti. They got on ships and went to Brazil. They then walked on foot from Brazil to America's southern border, a journey that takes almost 15 months. Right? And as they're on the southern border, they are waiting to qualify for asylum. Many of them can't qualify for asylum because of Title 52, which is a program that says because of health restrictions, you cannot cross that border. Because of America's clogged immigration courts, they are not seeing an immigration judge. So this is a story about delays in the immigration courts. An unmodernized immigration court system has caused many of these folks that would qualify for temporary protective status to be, as you just said, Emily, to be in a situation where there's a humanitarian crisis on the southern border by people that will qualify for humanitarian asylum in the United States. We are a giving country. Right, that's why we have Lady Liberty a couple miles from here. These individuals who we should be giving to.
So they're prioritized above.
No, it's not prioritizing. No, it's not about prioritizing them over that. These are folks who already qualify.
That's the argument that you're making right now.
I'm saying they would
not
qualify
everyone
for.
I mean, whatever the administration is, there's a fixed number of people.
Very true. Right, but I'm saying there's already laws and there's already a law in place on the books for them to qualify. Temporary protective status, they would qualify for that. Problem is many of them aren't seeing an immigration judge because the courts are just so overrun, they're so clogged that it might be 2 or 3 years before they even get a court case.
The difference, Richard, is you have Americans still stranded in Afghanistan who Biden has abandoned.
But you're mixing apples and oranges.
You can't verify the manifest.
Thousands of Haitians
you're mixing apples
really
and oranges.
Don't qualify
immigration
to be a
courts
priority.
versus
Not a
what's
priority,
happening in
Richard.
Afghanistan
We have
are 2
Americans
different things.
stranded overseas right now. Make them a priority.
Can't verify the manifest. We certainly can't verify 10,000 people a day who are coming into a small town. Greg?
Yeah, it is interesting. So the government actually tries to temporarily take down the drones. In the previous administration, they would have invited the press down to see everything. I guess Biden only approves of drones if they're killing people. If this coverage, this Bill Melugin coverage, this amazing, footage were on any other network, let's say NBC, it would win Emmys because the visuals have the power of creating a real, true narrative that Richard should applaud because it would tell the story that he would want to hear. These visuals are striking. They're forcing the mainstream media to actually maybe get off their butts. These are images that honestly can make a difference, but it tells you why nothing changes. It's because the media are the gatekeepers. The left are the media gatekeepers for the media. If there's just one small trickle of injustice anywhere under a Republican, the media will amplify it, right? But you could have months of this. We've had months of this. A lot of it suffering. A lot of it unmitigated suffering. And it takes Fox and Fox's visuals and Bill Melugin to force the media into a corner to do this when a Democrat's in power. You actually have to shame them to actually do their jobs. But this is why we often can't do anything about it, because the monopoly of thought in the media, which is aligned with Democrats, makes this kind of coverage so rare. And I don't know how they go forward when now they can see this. This is award-winning stuff.
NBC gave this 4 seconds. Coverage of this issue in mainstream media besides us has declined 94%, while the surge itself of these people, of these humans, has increased by over 300%, to your point.
Mm-hmm. But they know they're suffering. They just don't want to tell the story. If they did, maybe you could alleviate it.